It'll turn. There it is.
Hello,
Hello.
everybody.
Oh.
Welcome to a live stream that is going to be very different from last week's.
Oh, sorry in advance. Oh my gosh.
No. I mean, like, I have a much better outlook on the movie that we're discussing. So if there's any negativity about Inside Out 2, it will not be coming from me.
Okay.
I'm not playing anger this week. So yeah, very, very happy to be here. I was happy to be here last week with the lovely and talented crew, but yeah, that was one for the books.
I agree.
But yeah, we are talking about Inside Out 2 tonight. We did the whole thing like, can summer movies be saved like 2 or 3 weeks ago? And here comes Inside Out 2.
Yeah, smashing everything.
The cume as of today, and I know this isn't a numbers show, but I have to get into this because it's pretty spectacular. Yesterday, it made $29 million on a Tuesday.
Wow.
So far,
That's
it's made $205 million domestic in less than a week, $380 million worldwide. So, yeah.
Well, we talked about that on that box office show. I know I brought it up. The two most guaranteed audiences that you can get that'll come out every time if you give them something good is the horror crowd and the kids crowd. And horror movies are easily made in a target audience that's loyal, and then you give families something worthwhile that the kids are shirt tugging to see, and they're coming. So all it takes to save the box office is a steady stream of horror and give the families what they want.
Yeah, I thought it was a little overhyped when they said that, Furiosa is spelling the doom for Hollywood. And like, no, I just think people didn't want to see a prequel to Mad Max or something like that.
I did. I don't know what you think. I really liked Furiosa.
I mean, I liked it.
That's a different conversation. That's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, we had the Furiosa conversation. I have a feeling that probably in like August, maybe September, we'll probably do a revisit, maybe a summer recap, and look at the how the predictions all turned out. And I'll have a big old plate of crow that I'll dig into, I'm sure. But we're here to talk about Inside Out 2 tonight. Who am I talking about it with? Who am I? I'm Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat, and I have Earth's Mightiest Critics with me here, as always. Mike Crowley of You'll Probably Agree, Annie Banks of The Mary Sue, and We Got This Covered. We got Don Shanahan of Film Obsessive and Every Movie Has a Lesson, and the Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast, and Katie Glidewell, the bald in front, aka the blonde in front, joining us once again, filled with joy. And I'm very happy to talk about this movie, a film that I really liked. I'm hoping to one day love, but it wasn't perfect, I don't think, by any means. But man, when it hit. So Inside Out 2, how do we want to approach this? Oh, I know how we want to approach this. I want to talk about who we're dedicating this episode to tonight. Apologies, I'm wired and very sleepy. I'm not drinking coffee. I'm drinking ice water, so it doesn't have quite the same edge. But tonight, there is a panelist who is not with us, Jeff York of the Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists, one of our regular panelists here, was unable to join us. He is dealing with the death in the family. His mother, Barbara York, passed away last weekend, and one of the complicating factors was a battle with Parkinson's, which she'd been struggling with for, as I understand it, a decade or so. I never met Barbara York, but I read Jeff's very touching tribute to her, which I've linked down below. And she sounded like an amazing woman and led quite an interesting life, and gave birth to Jeff. And if you've watched the show and if you've enjoyed Jeff's commentary and perspective, you could see that he's a very interesting character and full of life. And so the person who helped raise him could only be an A+ spirit. And in that spirit, tonight we are going to donate any super chats that we get. I'm going to match and donate any super chats that we get and donate them to the Parkinson Foundation, which I've got that link down below. So if you're watching this in the future and you want to, donate to help research and quash the scourge, please do. But tonight, if you're feeling generous and you want to help out, please just drop a super chat. And like I said, I'm going to match and donate. Thank you for that. I'm going to put up, instead of we're going to talk spoilers tonight, but I'm not going to put up the spoiler banner. We'll just say we're talking spoilers. The banner I am going to put up, if I can get it right, is donation banner. So right down there's the address, and you can just super chat as you like. So Inside Out 2, much like Furiosa, a film that, as we were discussing, did not do that well this summer. In fact, was announced yesterday that it's going to be on demand 31 days for rental after it was in theaters. So the window wins again. But that came out in 2015, as did Inside Out, directed by Pete Docter. Now, Pete Docter is not back for the sequel. I don't know how much a difference that makes, because I don't want to say that Pixar sequels are cookie cutter, but I mean, the world has been set up already. It's, as far as the direction goes, I think you'd have to be pretty clumsy to fumble that ball.
You've got a little dip in quality and talent here, where some voice talent has been replaced by the folks who did not come back from the first. I think that Michael Giacchino's score is pretty amazing for the first one, and you've got a different composer here and a different vibe and flavor, even though you're regurgitating some themes. But
I'm talking specifically about direction, though.
Yeah, there's some step downs here in that department, and I'll get to it when we get to our little shades and part, where there's even a storytelling just stumble, or just a trope that I always talk about in this show. I'll bring it up.
Well, Kelsey Mann, I don't know. I know there's some credits there, but I'm not sure if this is Kelsey's feature debut. I know that worked in the animation department and some story credits on some other films.
It is her feature debut. Yeah.
Okay. And I'd say it's a pretty good feature debut for what it is, for stepping in to fill some pretty big shoes. But as we like to do every week, I think we should go around the virtual table and kind of give our high level opinions, kind of keeping it spoiler free. And then we'll talk spoilers as we get into the show. So Don, you spoke up first. What do you make of Inside Out 2?
No, it's a very fine and worthy sequel to Inside Out 1. I found this. I went with my wife and kids. I skipped the press screening for this one, went with the family. And kind of with that target demographic in terms of just, mothers and parents, and then kids themselves that are coming up in that age. And the whole house was pleased here. I thought this movie was in a couple of like I said, there's some production. I don't want to say reduction and stuff like that when you lose Giacchino and stuff like that, but there's noticeable little like, oh, this is a little less than it was last time. But something that did go up a lot was just the humor. I thought this movie was immensely funnier than the first one, which helps kind of not make it not that the first movie is the sad belle of of any kind of ugly thing in the world, but the notes are heavier in the first one, and this one is much lighter. It's still kind of but it still at the same time engages you in different emotions in different places, which is a nice addition, especially where the character is going to go with the person who's that age. If I'm going to speak flaws, and I'll be the guy that says it up front a little bit, where there's a level here where by introducing as many new emotions as you do, and appropriate ones at that, don't get me wrong, they all fit. But you do get a bit of a too many cooks in the kitchen department of characters kind of all tugging on the puppeteer strings for our girl Riley. And even though 5 of them are sidelined and banished in the way that they are, it's still a lot of cooks in the kitchen because you have 2 places you're trying to keep track of. And then at the same time, Riley herself, which has a pretty good arc herself in terms of when the brain controls aren't there and the characters just doing their thing. I think another thing that I hate to put this lampshade on Pixar, but it happens a lot, and it happens more often than I realize, I call it the one flaw of the first movie that shows up again in this movie is we're still on that same trope of we have to get the thing on time for the deadline and get back to home kind of thing, where I know that's a common kids movie, family movie trope, but it is overdone and overplayed when that is the thing you do 8 times out of 10. And Pixar has been doing that for a long time, where like, hey, we have to get the thing in time for the deadline of this, and we have to get back home, and it's just chase, go. And I get that you need something to go do and something to go find or something to go conquer, but with a movie that is meant to be as internalized as it is, literally and figuratively, you can do that without chasing all over the place in the same silliness of things. Now, don't get me wrong, by the time you put some invention to that when it comes to brainstorming, the sarcasm and all that, you do try to visualize that in unique ways, but at the end of the day, you're still chasing the one thing you need to go get back to home, and they do that a lot in Pixar, whether it's Brave, Finding Dory, Finding Nemo. I can go down the list where it's just too many of those, where I wish they can just, if you're gonna have that many cooks in the kitchen, stay in the kitchen. And I think you get a movie that can still hit all the notes you want it to hit, but still do it in a, I don't know, more conversational way than just a chase kind of way. But none of that takes me out of the movie. None of that takes it. None of that reduces where it's going. None of that reduces any emotion or effect. But it's something I noticed, and something I'm like, man, we could do that a different way, and it could still play a little bit. So that's where I'm at with it.
I want to get back to some of those points because I think we're definitely on the same page there. Fair point. I mean, a lot of movies nowadays are kind of, I think, without directly trying to make video game movies, they're tying into the kind of fetch quest nature of video game playing, which is fine. You want to meet the audience where they're at, but for some folks who might not be into that or want something a little bit different, it can be a tad frustrating. So I definitely understand it. Katie, what did you make of Inside Out 2?
I think I actually took a friend of mine's daughter who brought her anxiety doll and anxiety shirt, and seeing her reaction to the film really had an input on me. Like, these are more sophisticated feelings than we had in the first one. It's a different situation that you're going into puberty and the sense of self. And I actually think it did have humor, but I actually think it really touched on more dramatic and emotional parts of the film, of this film, the last one, and just the fact that you can't have one emotion driving your entire self the whole way. And I think they did a very good job of that. Like, you need that mixture. I love the new emotions. My favorite emotion, honestly, I don't think got enough screen time. There were actually 2 scenes that she got, but I loved her so much. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I think they did I think they did an excellent job with embarrassment, ennui, envy, and then anxiety. Like, these are all things that when you get to a certain point and you're trying to go into another level, like from elementary school to junior high, high school, these are all things that are like so immense. I think I heard that they were actually supposed to be like 9 emotions, and they cut it down to 5. So I would like
9 new ones.
Yeah, there were supposed to be 9, and they cut it down to 5. So I would have liked to have seen. I was wondering if there was going to be like romance or something like that. That probably would have been going on, but it's an interesting storyline because, I mean, she's kind of going through the thing with friends and like new schools and stuff like that, and those are all like really, those can be pretty traumatic things going on in a kid's life. And I think they did an amazing job. I love the score. I love, that you have each time like her sense of self and what situations mean. And I'm not surprised that it's making the gobs and gobs of money that it is. I just hope that they don't try and like rush and make another one, which, sometimes do. I mean, look, you guys took 9 years. Fine. This is the way to do it. Just make sure. I actually recently rewatched Inside Out, and I think Tony Hale did a great job replacing Bill Hader and Liza Lapira. I think she had actually, I think Mindy Kaling's character in the first one was not as present as Envy is in this one. And I think Liza Lapira actually did a really good job with that. I think Maya Hawke was spot on with anxiety. Amazing. So, I mean, the voice actors, they could not have done better. And I recommend this to everybody. I think this is something that everyone should see with their kids, have that open discussion about feelings, and it's okay to go through these because it's like, and also friendship and, watching your friends go through this and like helping them out too. So I'm like a huge supporter of this film.
Excellent. I will say, I didn't look up the cast before I went to the movie. So for me, the Tony Hale substitution for Bill Hader was a big problem. It's kind of the thing like when you had the Disney direct to VHS sequels in the 90s and they couldn't get the voice talent back, and you're like, wait a second. Yeah. So yeah, it was a big distraction. I think partially because I knew it wasn't Bill Hader, but I couldn't place who it was. So I had that annoying thing where I had to wait till the credits were like, who is it? And I'm like, oh, it's Tony Hale. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the envy swap out. I didn't. Disgust. I didn't pick up a difference at all. To me, that was like seamless, and I agree. I think there was more for her character going on in this movie than the first one. For the record, Inside Out is one of my top probably 3 Pixar films of all time.
Same. I didn't cry I didn't actually cry at this one, but I made sure to bring tissue. And my friend that came with me, I'm glad I brought it because she used it. I don't know. My heart's is a black stone right now. I don't know what's going on. I'm not crying at anything. I didn't cry at Guardians 3. I didn't cry at this. I don't know what's wrong with me. But anyway, it is a cry-worthy movie.
Yes, for the record, everybody, I cried. Yeah, even though I was sitting next to my oldest son. Yes, we went as a family. The kid who hates movies sat next to me and was seething and making comments under his breath, and I had to like shush him and give him the dad look several times. Sometimes I give him the dad look through tears, and I'm sure that only added to his embarrassment.
Yeah.
Annie, what do you make of Inside Out 2?
I'm kind of in the minority where I hated the first Inside Out. It depressed me. Growing up, my mental health was not always the best. And I can really sympathize with and empathize with Riley from that point that she was at from the first Inside Out. And I think that was a little too real and a little too scary for me at the time. And I hated it. I refused to watch it again. I couldn't watch it again. It just really reminded me of a time that I sincerely was struggling. So I was really skeptical about seeing Inside Out 2 just because I knew how strong of a reaction I had and how unprepared I was for it, I guess. And being a middle school girl at one point and having to kind of relive the worst years of my life was really tough. But Inside Out 2 was such a wonderful surprise. My perspective was totally changed. And I have dealt with severe anxiety, and seeing that be broken down and dissected and presented in a way that destigmatizes how anxiety really is and breaks down the nuances of it's not just one generalized disorder, but there are different aspects to it, and we all process it very differently. And seeing that come from someone who I could reflect myself in was so personal. I didn't love it. I'm very much in the camp where I liked it, and I would advocate for people to go see it, but I wouldn't love it. I think I need some time to watch it again just to process everything and really let it sit with me. And but I think now that we are at a point in Western culture and in Western culture and media that we're so open and transparent about how mental health can be dissected and represented in media, this is a great point for young people who may not understand what's going on and not have the right resources or home life to support that. I was very fortunate where I did get the help that I needed, and I was supported, and I am, better than I was 9 years ago, which is crazy to say. But yeah, I really think that this was an eloquent sequel. It was very thoughtful. It was very sincere. Again, some of the voice changes, okay, fine, and I don't know if we need so many emotions at once. Katie, I hate to break it to you, they are making an Inside Out show.
Oh, are they?
They are. It's going to be a Disney Plus series. Which, it's kind of counterintuitive for them to franchise and capitalize off of something like this that is so sensitive at its core and can mean a lot to people who need to be experiencing these messages and taking to the theater, like your friend's kid, like your own children. But it's a great advocate for opening up conversations around really difficult subjects that need a little more imagination and need a little more creativity to breach. So I hats out to Pixar. I'm not the biggest Pixar fan in the world. I'm definitely an animation fan, but not, Pixar's hit or miss. This was one that was definitely a hit, and I look forward to raving about it tonight.
I'm curious, Annie. Yeah. You had your experience with the first movie, and it really struck a chord with you.
Oh yeah.
Is it?
I didn't experience it or anything, but thinking back to that, such a transitional period. And Dawn, your daughter kind of comes to mind too, as she prepares to move from one school to another. Girls are mean.
Yeah, they are.
Girls are horrible. Middle schoolers are some of the awful, most cruel and heartless creatures on the face of this earth.
I teach them too. I know exactly what you mean.
And but I think Riley's inability in the first one to understand a sense of self and then struggle with reclaiming that and understanding where she fit in or where she didn't fit in. And as someone who didn't really fit in and experienced a lot of that coming of age period alone really stood out to me.
Well, I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. You hated the movie. Is it because it struck so close to home that you couldn't experience it as a piece of art? It was just sort of like all this kind of trauma reflected back at you. And I guess since you're such a comparatively a huge fan of the second one, you said you're going to need some time to process it, to watch it again. Do you think there's an avenue for you to go back and reevaluate the first movie with a bit of perspective?
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of contradict myself here where I said I never watched the first one again. I want to watch the first one again now that I've grown past that period of struggle that really held me back for a long time. And I think I'm at the point where I can use that as a measurement of self-growth and self-development between now and then. I'm currently watching something now, but like after I'm done with that, I'm going to go back and watch it. And now that I just, it's on Disney Plus, so it's nice that I can take the time to really ease back into it. And now, especially with the first one or the second one so fresh in my mind, being able to compare that and look at it as a piece of art, look at it from a fan perspective and a critical perspective, instead of just looking at it and going, wow, this is all too real for me and I can't sit here for 2 hours.
Right. And good luck with that. I hope that you are able to appreciate it and kind of find a new perspective on it, because it stinks. I totally understand movies like I'm never watching that again because it was just too much, and sometimes it is, you just leave that alone and never revisit it, and sometimes you go back to it and it becomes an entirely different thing. Mike, how about you? What did you make of Inside Out 2?
Well, there's a reason Pixar is so hit or miss, and they really know how to get into the feelings that other people have. If you look at the Toy Story, the feeling of abandonment and acceptance, that really resonates with Toy Story 3, which kind of gets a little hindered with Toy Story 4. And
a little.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's Woody's death tape which is what I call it, is why I feel like that movie's not exactly necessary. But
just wait till you see part 5, Mike.
Are they going to visit Andy when he's on his deathbed? I don't know. But when you look at Inside Out, I like the first one because it seemed to hit everyone on a very personal level, like with this panel, where the first one was a film about a little girl who was moving into a different neighborhood, and things aren't quite as financially great as they were. She has to fit in with new kids, and like all these things that every kid goes through, but you see it through the mind of a kid. I've been reading a book recently that actually mentions Inside Out 2, or not Inside Out 2, but Inside Out 1, and where it's a film that is so deep because it touches on what we're going through, whether we're a child or an adult. And as a kid, you can see that movie and you can like it because, it's funny. And yeah, I feel this and that. But man, when you get older, you really start to understand that film, and you really start to understand a lot of the feelings that are happening. And it's a great way to market towards children without talking down to them. It's not beating them over the head. It's not, trying to be overly cute like, all those Minions movies are or something like that. And hey, if you like the Minions movies, that's great. They're just not my cup of tea. And Inside Out 2 continues that tradition. It's not as strong as the first one because I think what Riley goes through isn't as significant. because she's basically going through a hockey school and she wants to be accepted by her friends. And it is significant. I mean, they do hit on themes kind of like Turning Red does, where it's more about maturity and something that you'll get when you're older, because right here, Riley's going through puberty. And when she's going through that, she's starting to learn. She's starting to be cruel to her parents, start to accept a lot of her friends, and she's starting to change as a person. And we feel that change and we understand it. We're not just kind of painting her in a corner as, oh, she's a bratty teenager now. She's going through a certain transition. And this film, it doesn't hit that it doesn't hit that ending like the first one does, where Riley's crying and she's saying, I miss my home and I miss everything that I used to have. But what it does is it's not as much of like a tearjerker as much as it is an anxiety trip. Because when Riley's going through that last act where I guess we're talking spoilers here, where
That's
she's
fine.
where she's trying to get into the hockey game, and she's trying to win and prove herself to, like, I think her name was Valerina Ortiz, who was like all-star hockey player. Yeah. She's trying to win her over while turning her friends away, but in the end she learns how to be a good person, which that's the theme of the film. It might be a little too obvious because they literally say in the movie, I'm trying to be a good person, but it works. And that's why these movies work. It's why the beginning of WALL-E worked. It's why Toy Story works. It's why a lot of these Pixar films, when they are effective, they do a great thing. And they're not like, and it's not like the sequels that the other Pixar films has made. It's not like The Incredibles 2 that just does the same exact plot and regurgitates it. It does its own thing while still doing a little bit of the same stuff. They still get into the realm of confused emotions or whatever, where they have to climb up the balls and all that to get back to the main central hub where they're controlling the emotion. But it doesn't go too far into going back to the well. It's doing what it should, and it's just highly emotional, as it should be. And it's a good film where I think the kids will like it, but the parents will like it even more. And it's something the kids can go back to and really enjoy. And yeah, I thought, this is a hit for Pixar. They did a good job. Not as good as the first one, but still pretty good. And I could see how that first one could be emotionally damaging, Annie. I mean, Jesus Christ, what the girl goes through is pretty much what a lot of kids go through when they go through school. And I went through that too. And I think that's why it hit me that way, the same way.
Yeah, Inside Out 2 is an interesting case because the story that Riley is going through, and I think to a certain extent, the first Inside Out, as you were saying, Mike, it's a universal story. Some might even call it cliched. The girl wants to fit in. I mean, I'm thinking back to an episode of Family Ties from 1986, where the youngest daughter is trying to impress like the Valley girls at school, and she completely changes her personality and turns her back on her parents, starts acting out all crazy and stuff. It's a plot we've seen a million times before in other movies and TV shows, but I think the brilliance of Inside Out 2 is it really gets into the feelings, the emotions, the whys and the how is that happening, and what do those new feelings, how do they manifest? We're going to get to a comment here in a second that I think jumps towards the end of the movie and what anxiety does. But I mean, as far as the setup goes, we've kind of touched on it. Riley's on the hockey team at her school with her two best friends. They get a chance to go to sort of a hockey camp with high school kids. They're all turning 13. They're going to be in high school the next year. So this is the big audition. Like if they can get in good with these high school kids, they'll be set. They'll be on the team. They'll be popular and all this other stuff. But Riley finds when she gets to camp, there's all these kind of new pressures, a lot of them self-inflicted, because aside from, some kind of like cliquish protectiveness, but I think a very mild case of it, like Val, the star of the team, is not your typical kind of arrogant, obnoxious person who's trying to keep the hero down. She's actually kind of cool. She's got some hangers on her, like, I don't know about this kid, and she's kind of weird, and she got us to do laps or whatever they were doing because they were goofing off. That was kind of a refreshing spin, but as Riley gets further and further into the need to impress these new people, their inner conflict really comes out to the point where anxiety, embarrassment, ennui, envy, they all move in. They're supposed to replace our hero emotions from the first film, and they do try and shuffle them off. They're bottled up emotions, literally. Again with the Pixar puns, and they kind of get kicked out of the wastelands. And yes, as Don mentioned, it's a journey back. They gotta get the thing in order to get back to the thing and save Riley. But in this film, Sadness is able to get back and kind of infiltrate this new gang and cause some. She prevents their plan from kind of going off the rails, and it's not even clear what their plan really is, except that anxiety wants to be in control. And I think the movie starts strong. It's got kind of a weak middle, I would say, only because I think back to the original Inside Out. Everything was new, like this representation of what is going on inside the mind of a preteen girl, and I guess ostensibly all of us, because we all have these emotions, these kind of similar looking landscapes. But we've never seen that before with these balls of emotion, the kind of the weird toyland kind of landscapes representing different stages of life and different relationships and things. We see all of that again, but we never had anything, I thought, that matched, say, the abstract thought sequence from the first one.
No, Pouchy doesn't do it for you?
I thought Pouchy was great. Look,
he's not as good as Bing Bong.
Yeah, I know.
Right, well, I was just going to say, Mike, that we watched Inside Out, I think it was earlier this year or late last year, because my youngest had never seen it. My oldest, he was forced to watch it in every grade of grade school. So he detests Inside Out.
Yeah.
A, because he hates movies. B, because he's had to watch this one ad nauseum. But that scene with Bing Bong, the kind of imaginary friend from Riley's childhood that eventually he has to let go, they get stuck in this kind of wasteland of piled high of old kind of dead emotional feelings, and Bing Bong helps Joy on this wagon to get up to the heights that she needs in order to escape and get back to headquarters. And the only way she can do that is by, oh my God, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now, because this always makes me weep like a child whenever I watch this scene. Bing Bong is with her, and then he decides the only way she's going to get away is for him to stay behind and die and wither into nothingness. And it's beautiful. But in Inside Out 2, we keep going back to this image of, hey, it's a giant chamber with hills full of balls. I'm thinking, okay, we've been here before. It was much more powerful. So now where's the new visual interpretation of some aspect of the psyche that we haven't seen before? That's kind of what I missed.
It's just what your background image is, where it's more the core of personality? What is it called? But that's your one new thing.
Sense of self.
Yeah.
Like the belief system. I think it was.
Yeah.
That's your new thing, which is okay.
I thought it was really strong, especially at the end, because what it is, these little shafts of light going up into the brain, representing how you feel about yourself, what you believe. And it gets into the kind of therapy culture, self-talk, but really makes it, I think, relatable to audiences.
Yeah, definitely.
Riley, it starts off when she first discovers this, or her emotions do. They ping this little thing, I'm a good person. I'm a good friend. I like people. I like helping people. But then when anxiety kind of gets control, she starts planting these negative emotions to kind of like balance things out or something. And some of that is, I'll do anything to win. I'm not a good person. And then that keeps ringing and ringing and ringing. And that's something that for, I'm going to say, a certain kind of adult, maybe it's all adults, because I'm not going to pretend that my emotions are everyone else's emotions. But this stuff hit as hard for me as an almost 47-year-old man that watching a movie about a 13-year-old cartoon girl. I'm like, wow, there really is some universality to it. And so I think the end of the film finishes much stronger than even the beginning or the middle, because to Brian Martinez's point in a comment we're going to read to in a second. In fact, let's just pull it up, because I'm rambling, but let's see. Brian says, my high level opinion, I love this goddamn movie. Hello to everyone. Hello, Brian. Hey.
Yeah.
Then he also says the scene when anxiety is on the control board and no one can pull her off, and she's kind of in a trance, is way scarier and more intense than anything I've seen in a horror movie this year.
And they cut back to Riley with the nervous breakdown in the penalty box. And just the sweat, the breathing. It's so good.
It gave me more of an anxiety attack than most movies that could try to incite an anxiety attack gave me.
it's funny because my youngest, when we were coming out of the movie, or actually we're in the movie, he kind of leaned over to my wife and said, "Is she the bad guy?" Because anxiety shows up and she's kind of weird and she's sort of trying to undercut the people that we understand to be the heroes. And I heard my wife say, not really. She's just, she's kind of a different emotion. And I think that's one of the great things about this film is she's the antagonist, but she's not a villain. And
First
when
movie
she
did the same, it's a villainless movie,
Right. And it's very effective because when she gets hold of those controls, anxiety loses control of what she's trying to do. And so anxiety gets caught in an anxiety loop, like a doom spiral. And my God, who on this panel has not been in one of those? And it's like, wow, as the kids say, I felt seen watching this movie. So yeah, we got a couple other comments here. One from Petty. Hey, Petty. Hello, guys, and the two princesses.
Ooh.
I don't know if last Sunday was Father's Day like in Argentina. Yes, it was. If it was, happy day for the fathers of the panel. Thank you. I always say that the important thing is that the kids call me daddy. If my wife sees this comment, I'm a dead man.
Oh, boy.
Can I call you daddy, Petty? And thank you for your generous donation. As a reminder, I don't know if you saw this in the first part of the show, but if you have, awesome. To everyone else who's watching, first of all, smash the like button. I'm going to be selfish here for a second. But secondly, we are dedicating tonight's episode to Barbara York, who is the mother of Jeff York, one of Earth's Mightiest Critics, who passed away last week. I am matching and donating all super chats from this live stream to the Parkinson's Foundation for Parkinson's research. So more information on that is down below in the description. So thank you very much. But let's see. Also, Petty says, again, thank you for your generous donation, sir. Now, seriously, Ian, you always seem like a true gentleman to me, but now with this gesture of donating the super chats, okay, so you did see it, demonstrates furthermore you show that you are a good person. My respects and congratulations. Well, thank you.
And
you're
Daddy.
accusing me of being a good person? Come on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Petty. I appreciate it. And this is all, all praise to Jeff and to Barbara. Again, a person I never met. But I really wish I had after reading that tribute. It was very lovely. Let's see. And Petty says, please, more context on the super chat donation issue. Okay. Well, I think I gave it to you. So yes. All right. Where else do we want to go with Inside Out 2?
I'll go back to the Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen, where a version that in my head that played out, and this is me playing armchair quarterback and barstool guy here, where I will let the people write the movie they wrote, and it turned out fine. But I thought about, like, if Riley's going through changes, maybe the center 5 emotions are going through changes too, because anxiety is not far off from fear, and embarrassment is not far off from disgust, and joy and sadness can play into ennui and a couple places like that. Where what if our main 5, without having too many cooks in the kitchen, are starting to evolve into more different feelings than just their straight joy, sadness, and anger, and like, can they be changing as much as the girl is changing without the new crew coming in? I still appreciate how they did it, but like, if there's a simpler version, like I said, where it stays in the kitchen, that's something that landed in my Jeff York screenwriter's brain there for a second.
I think Joy had a pretty interesting arc in this one, where she just kind of realized that she's not, enough, and she on her own can't give Riley what she needs. I understand what you're saying here, and I almost wish that some of the fetch quest plottiness of the movie had been dedicated to more of that, exploring what these characters could be and how they could change. I mean, one of the things I thought was so great about the first film was at the end you had this great idea of the mixed emotions and the colored balls. It was nice to see those kind of popping up again, but I'm like, what's the next evolution of that? I mean, it's kind of anxiety as far as that idea being explored, but I wanted a little bit more from it. It's hard for me to pin down. Yeah.
I think that, and I think it's the final line of the film, is when Joy says, we love all of our girl, every beautiful, messy piece of her. And that, I think, says it all. I mean, it's not just one emotion that she's experiencing. And as the first one, mentioned, you need to have a little bit of that sadness to see the joy. You need the sour to appreciate the sweet. And especially, I mean, look, I love nostalgia. I really wish they would have had more of her in it. I loved hearing June squib. As soon as that happened, I let out a huge thing of glee and squee. And but I like how they just put her back in after a minute, after like 10 seconds, like, we just talked about that 30. It's like, okay, I'll be back here. Bye.
I love that line of like, oh, you need 10 years, 2 graduations,
we'll
and a best friend's wedding for you to come out. Go back in there.
Yeah,
lady,
it's like, go back in. Okay, I'll be back here. See ya.
And it's June.
But
And if you've seen Thelma this week, it's June. You're like, oh my gosh, it's perfect. So
if she doesn't get nominated for Best Actress for that, shut up. I mean, she is amazing.
Yeah.
But
that's a movie I recommend your way, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like every what was I saying? Oh no, but you need that messiness of the emotions, because like when she's going through her mind, like, I'm a good person, I'm a bad friend. It's like we all go through that. Like we think, internally, yes, we want to be the best person we can, but at the same time, we have things that go wrong, and that just can't destroy us. And if we have that one emotion that does that, like, I like the fact that embarrassment and sadness had that little moment together, and that they're working together, to try and get everything kind of back on track. And even Envy seeing what anxiety is doing, and she's like, whoa, girl, what's happening? Like, you need to, break it, you need to pull it back. And then when anxiety sees that, Joy, she needs this, she needs you. I tried to do this. I'm trying to help her out for the next 4 years, because that is the thing with anxiety. It's like, you think about, it's like, okay, what's the next 4 years going to be like? I'm going to be this. It's like, my friends are leaving. I've got to have whole new things. And it's like, even if she gets on the hockey team, those girls are like seniors. So then she's got a whole new level of things that we haven't even dealt with in the film. And I just think they did such a good job of it. But also, I don't know. There also is the fact that it's like she has her friends that she's had in elementary school that became her best friends. And then when she gets to high school, you kind of don't see where that's going to go, which I understand you can't do everything. And then also everything that happened in Minnesota. It's like, that's kind of like all of her friends in Minnesota are done. But that's kind of thing of growing up and moving away. I mean, people drift apart and stuff like that. And that's something to show kids too. That, like, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something you have to accept. And I don't know, I like the messiness that having all of those emotions, because I feel like, they definitely could have had a lot more. I mean, if they're going to do her like in college, there's going to be, I mean, who knows how that's going to go, if this is going to keep going and stuff like that. I don't know. That's going to be very interesting if they keep, doing a sequel and stuff. But
be like the 7-Up movies, only with Pixar.
Yeah, like this movie stops just short of like that. I know 13 is that spot where I know legally I'm going to use the air quotes because I see kids that do it all the time. But like you can get more into social media when you're 13, like Snapchat and TikTok and things like that, and Facebook and all, and Instagram. Like, you're supposed to be 13 when you get those accounts, but plenty of kids under 13 do. But like that next level of like the cyberbullying, the social acceptance, the digital acceptance, like you said, even the bullying of high school. Like we're still a movie. Like there's meat on the bone for a third movie if they want to go there to another cataclysmic step if they want. But to make that bridge between where she was in the first movie to here is just enough of a leap. Like it didn't jump too far. I mean, I know I'm talking about too many cooks in the kitchen and all that, but like it fit the flow of where they're going.
It's interesting. Like, Annie, you mentioned that there's going to be a Inside Out TV show.
There is. It was announced, and then a couple of weeks ago, I believe, and then following such a big box office success, they announced the release window. So it's currently angled for 2025 on Disney Plus. There's no further details shared at the moment.
Interesting. I don't know that they would do this, but I feel like you can have a cheap kind of like, hey, it's the emotion of the week, kind of like all the characters running around or just getting lost, trying to get back to headquarters, the little Fetch Quest TV series. Or there's room to really explore, what if they did like a what if style kind of show where every week they visit Riley at a different age, or or they go into the mind of a different, person. Like, who says it has to be Riley or a kid at all? Like, they could explore parents or other types of people, other, emotions around the world. I don't know. There's so many possibilities here. I think about, like, as an adult, and maybe this is just me needing to go, lay on the couch and talk to someone for a while. But, just the idea of joy, I could see someone like looking into my head, as a 47-year-old guy, and be like, wait a second, there are a couple of emotions missing. Like, it's not that they're gone, but, maybe they're in a back room somewhere because I haven't had that child. I mean, joy really is an emotion of innocence, of youth, because the world is so new and you can explore things, be amazed by things. And as you get older, unless you take, a very, not a specific path, but I'd say a very fortunate path, perhaps, those opportunities for experiencing pure joy kind of like dissipate, or maybe they become something else. To your point, Don, maybe we visit an adult and like, hey, where's joy? Oh, that I used to be joy, and now I'm something else.
We get those
kind of unrecognizable.
We get those clues already because in the first movie and in the second movie, we see inside Riley's parents' head and who's the lead emotion at the board. And in Mom's head, it's sadness, and in Dad's head, it's anger. And I feel like you can kind of peg every adult if you really wanted to, and do that. My own children.
That's a different kind of movie, Don.
No. Well, that peg. I'm sorry. We're back to Horace and things like that. Like last time. Darn it, Don. But no. My children and I challenge my wife and I which emotions that lead at your control board, Dad. And my kids had one answer. My wife and I, like, we all kind of try to label each other a little bit in that car ride conversation at home. And my son thought my lead emotion was nostalgia because I'm a back in my day kind of old man dad. My daughter had a different answer. My wife had a different answer. We all kind of played the label game, not quite office level of, but we're there. It was a good time. I think those are the entry level conversations that these movies have always made, both of them.
And there's a line from the second one where Joy says, "Well, maybe when we get older, we don't feel as much joy in our life," and that line hit me like a spear through the heart. I'm like, oh God, that's actually kind of true. Like, there is joy to be had, but it comes more intermittently between work. So
right.
But maybe the adult version of joy is contentment, or getting into the higher level adjectives, to describe similar emotions. I think
satisfaction,
possibly, satisfaction.
Good enough,
well done, or something like that. Yeah.
A dad who's like that. Dad who puts something heavy down. That's not going anywhere. Like joy, There's little stuff like that, and women have it too. Like a clean. I hate to use the female things, but like a clean house, and like little things like that.
I experienced joy at a sparkling sink, Don, by my own dishwasher. What's that?
Same.
Okay, but I want to say, it's interesting because Petty, you brought up, Father's Day, and I got to say, one of the really weird things about being a dad is, it's tough. It's, sleepless nights, it's insecurity, it's trying to do it right and feeling like you're failing all the time. But, in terms of joy, like with both my boys, I used to hate Halloween. I was never a Halloween kid. I trick-or-treated, but it was all about the candy, and I couldn't understand, getting dressed up past a certain age. But now, when I take the kids out trick-or-treating and I see how much fun they have, I'm watching it from a completely different perspective and seeing, or I feel like these old emotions are coming out of doors from the basement, even just for a night.
Sure.
And I was like, that's joy. I'm recognizing the joy in other people, and that's rekindling the joy I feel like sometimes I've lost in myself.
Yeah.
That's
hosting Halloween for me, it does it. Like, being the candy giver is now my joy, and I love that. Like that, it's completely different than when I was a kid. Same way. Same.
So, and I wonder, there's probably a dark side to this too. I mean, emotions that, were suppressed or not as prevalent, the darker, the more negative emotions, maybe some of those manifest in different people, and they take control of the switchboard. Like Brian's the great one. Mario Argento is in charge of my internal control board.
Ooh. Oh my. That's not Ennui.
I just
I'm bored of
Brian,
that.
I'm gonna when I have free time, I'm gonna sketch you up an inside out picture of your brain. It's me all the emotions in like black trench coats and hats, wearing black leather gloves. and trying to control persons with stilettos in their hands. Let's see. Eddie says, Mike, who could have your hair? Someone tells you one of his hair fell out a while ago. It's a bit of a healthy and envy and admiration. All right.
I don't know. I wish I had the answer to that.
Genetics.
Yeah.
Mike, you are the main man.
Yeah.
So I have a question. If there was a third one, because the first one definitely centered around family, because that was her biggest island. And then this one, when they looked at her different like emotional islands and stuff, friendship was the biggest one. Do you think in the third one it would be like self?
I think so. Like if depending on how far you jump ahead, but like when you have to, when a kid turns 16 and gets that car or that ability to do a little more, when they turn 18 and they have to go get a job, when they go to college and decide their fate, or if they don't go to college and they just join the working force, like I think you do shift to look out for number one. I think self could be a natural progression there. I'm with you there.
Yeah, and then as it goes on, maybe a little bit later,
And
like it goes right back to kind of family.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I was thinking about that, how they really emphasize like, wow, look at how Friendship Island is huge, and then like Family Island is like itty bitty bitty.
Yeah.
That's
a teenager for you, though. You know,
that's a brilliant little sight gag where it's like kind of funny, but they're like, oh yeah. I gotta say, it could go many different places, because I'm thinking like Inside Out 3 and then 4. Like unlike the Toy Story movies, which I think peaked at the perfect ending of Toy Story 3, the fact they're coming out with a 5, I'm like, I don't even know if I want to watch it.
Are they really coming out with a 5?
They are,
yeah.
It's been confirmed.
Sorry.
Hey, I have to get these alerts as they break, so I do the groaning and the on company time, and then for fun, I get to.
Thank you for that, Annie. I'm glad. I mean, but God, I mean, yeah, I didn't even want 4. I thought 3 was like
perfect.
Leave it on the high note and just leave it. So
it's another goosebump moment when the dolls all grab each other's hands, and I believed, like, okay, this is the end of the third movie in the trilogy. These puppets are melting.
Yeah, I recut it into where they all died on my show.
You would. I love it.
But okay, as far as like the emotions go, I feel like, and that's something that after Inside Out 2 is over, I realized there was a bit of, I'll call it a cheat. That sounds harsher than I intended. The bit where the coach in the locker room, day 1 of training camp, collects all the cell phones. So this is, I mean, what's going on with the kids today? It's all about, the connectivity through social media, which brings up, fears of, not measuring up, influencer culture, bullying, that kind of stuff. There's all these directions you could go. I wonder if, and I appreciate that they stayed clear of that, because you can focus more on the core emotions of, it's more of a universal thing, because not everybody has those things, and also is more of a universal message in terms of reaching, say, adults. Like, I didn't have cell phones when I was 12. What is this nonsense? But I wonder if they can get away with that a third time, or if they're going to plow right into it and say, there's possibly bullying. There's definitely at some point there has to be some kind of fulfillment of like, or the exploration of a romantic interest. She's kind of boy crazy. She likes these boy bands. She had a crush on a video game character. One of the funniest 1, 2, 3 punches when they go into that vault and they meet the PlayStation 1 era fighting game guy, the Tekken bro or whatever.
Look, I am about to defend Riley so hard, because
I'm not
that was
blaming.
me, and that still is me. Like, I texted you guys if we were watching Ultraman Rising before, because that's what I'm watching right now. Let me just say, the character design is. I enjoy the character design.
He looks just like a Kingdom Hearts character.
He was hot.
He's dreamy.
Yeah.
He's very attractive.
Yeah.
But
as the
but it's, as someone who, through my experience as an entertainment reporter, right, we do cover a lot of the boy bands, especially the international ones that are so popular right now. So I do really like how this is a universal trope that they've tapped into. And it's something that we all kind of can relate to. And it's not just one standard or another standard. And it gets into like the weird nuances of being seen. Like, hey, I do that too. That's not just a me thing. This is an us thing. The same thing with social media, influencers, and all that. The conversation around the youth and having social media, we've seen it reflected in entertainment time and time again. I think one of my favorite iterations is in Bo Burnham's 8th grade.
There you go.
I want to compare Inside Out 2 to 8th grade just because I feel like there are so many talking points and themes that can be shared between. And I see Riley in the talented young actresses. Her name escapes me, but her performance as well. And I just think that, this execution of talking about real world concerns, not the concerns that we want to make up just for the sake of, think of the children, because we think of the children, but coming from someone who's an athlete, there's that. There's sports anxiety, performance anxiety, everything else like that. I just for as much as the film doesn't or it could have slipped under the radar and just been a cash grab for the sake of creating merch and everything, I do once again really admire how we're not just taking hot topics and saying Riley is this, she's that, and we're going to have anxiety, post on Instagram 15 times and comment on the guy she likes status 1,000 times. No, because that's super cliche. And I think we skirted around these cliches while understanding that we can, what do I want to say? While understanding that we can have these conversations with children without having to polarize it. I think it was done in moderation.
Great way of putting it.
Most surprised from a political standpoint that there has not been any outcry from certain parties about Inside Out 2.
Fair wonder.
Well, I wonder why, because it is such a popular trend with Disney.
Yeah.
And I was writing about this for a different series where we're so used to slapping the word woke on anything now. I looked into the definition of woke, right? And although it kind of is in a way where the definition defends the conversation around socio-political aspects and talking points. And it does that. So if they want, but I haven't seen any coverage from hyper opinionated news sources or opinion pieces about what's going on. Even, from a search perspective, looking into stories to give my own team or maybe myself, right, to write about Riley's identity of gender and or sexual orientation, where again, happy Pride, right? It's June. And I know there was speculation about her being attracted to women. I'm just, impressed that did not become such a big blockade as we saw with Lightyear, where there was
Well, this is a topic for a completely different show.
Sure.
I mean, I can tell you why you're not seeing all that from the right-wing media sources. You saw that a lot leading up to the movie. Before, when the trailer first came out, there was the shot of Riley wearing a rainbow sweater. Like, oh, what does that mean? And she's on a hockey team, and there's it's an all-girl hockey team, and they've got like red streaks in their hair, so what that probably means. But then when people finally saw the movie, I think that's the kind of the damper on the the Disney get woke go broke thing, and the not so secret gay agenda, which was an actual thing that was reported during a meeting of Disney creatives. So I mean, it's not that there's nothing there, it's just that it's not always there, and if it is, it doesn't always mean what certain people think it means.
Yeah, it was very subtle, thank God.
Right, but I mean, that's the thing. It's like you can watch this movie, Inside Out 2 specifically, and not feel like there's any kind of agenda being pushed. To kind of quote, paraphrase Sigmund Freud, sometimes a rainbow sweater is just a rainbow sweater.
Oh, sure.
If Riley is bi, or she's not asexual, I don't think, because she's got her crushes on either video game characters or boy bands keeps coming up, but her sexuality isn't really even a thing in this movie. I think that's something that, if we're talking about Inside Out 3, that's where, I mean, this is going to sound weird, I hope they explore the sexuality of this teenage girl. No, I'm just talking about like the the kind of universal emotion of the awakening of even newer emotions or newer versions of emotions that come with that transitionary age. I think that could be very interesting. I think they go that direction, and or they explore something to do with social media. And I don't think it's just a matter of riding a trend. I think that it's a matter of kids are different now than they were, in previous generations. And I think there's nothing wrong with addressing that. I think you can address that in a very sensitive way that also perhaps helps to bridge that, age generational divide between, Zennials and Millennials and Xers and hell, even Boomers, maybe. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. I think it's ultimately not. I can't objectively say if this is a better film than the first one, because I think when it hits for me, it hits in all the right ways that the first movie hit, but in perhaps an unfair bias that I just can't shake, it doesn't have the newness of the first Inside Out. So that's a movie that I'm going to have a special place in my heart for forever. And Inside Out 2 is me like, oh yeah, that was a really good sequel.
Yeah,
that's where I land.
And if that's all it is, it did its job. Like that's it. Like Annie said earlier, this could have been a cash grab and an embarrassing thing to shove across the box office, and where we're like, what are you really doing here? You ruin a good thing. Like they didn't embarrass themselves. They didn't ruin a good thing. They just added to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and with this, well, I wonder with the box office. I mean, I know they're doing a TV show that's come out in 2025. I hope that they're not going to try and rush it and be like, oh, we gotta strike while the iron's hot. It's coming out at the end of this year. Yeah. Because we all know Disney has had those problems with trying to rush these big budget productions and, torturing the poor creatives who are making it happen. But I wonder if they're going to fast track Inside Out 3, or if they're going to try and work it in so it'll be like the Marvel movies where you have to watch the TV show to find out what's going to, so you can understand the movie. I don't know. I'm hoping none of that happens. That's right, Katie, thumbs down for that idea.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't like the TV show. I wonder if they're going to see what entities control the entities. Who controls the emotions? The emotions have emotions controlling them. If they have the emotions controlling them, then who controls the emotions? So
it's trippy shit, Mike.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. I always wondered that. I'm like, wait, who's controlling joy? But
it's all the faculty team guys.
It's Inception Side Out. There you go. You're gonna have DiCaprio showing up, and it's a cartoon.
God. Wow. Just explaining everything throughout the whole movie. Yeah.
Wow. Well, and I mean, if they have an Inside Out 3, because I know we've been talking about like with social media and everything with if they're on this track where it's going to be in 9 years, who knows what could be going on at that point. I mean, there's a whole new by that time, from the first one to the third one, that's a whole different generation, and that's a whole I mean, who knows what would be going on with social media. I mean, it could be obsolete in different ways and stuff like that. So there's always looking at that. Who knows what could happen with influencers? There's a whole there's a lot of stuff that can change in that amount of time that we may not know anything about.
True.
I hope they make it about TikTok shutting down. I think that'd be funny.
I would bring it on.
Katie, you're really turning me around on something here, because you recontextualize my initial comment about it being a cheat to collect the cell phones. It's kind of smart, because it takes so long to make these movies, even just from a writing perspective, and then you got to animate it and voice act. So not every movie takes a decade to make, but they take a few years. So if you try and hot button it, it's like, well,
your relevance.
I think social media is never going to go away. It's going to evolve because we're all so connected. But the iteration of it, like, it kind of be like, oh man, Riley's got to deal with Facebook. Everyone's still on Facebook. And like, well, A, it's meta now, and B, like, no one her age is on Facebook anymore. That kind of thing. So yeah, I think that may actually be cleverer than even I. But yeah, any final thoughts on Inside Out 2? Because we're running a little long, but not long as we have been. I'm guarantee I'm going to get y'all out of here in less than 2 hours.
Ooh. Can I go back on something you just said, Ian, with these being hot button issues? I do like that, because it is a time capsule in a type of way, just as we see in older movies. Like, if you look back, like growing up, I was shown John Hughes movies, and that was my folks' generation. That was their youth, Ferris Bueller is one of my favorite movies, but like, or the Home Alone movies or stuff like that, where these were significantly dated. Now, if I were to show today's children, right, that would be 100 years ago in their eyes. And I think if we keep Inside Out relevant, not to the point where you're like, on 2024, July, June 19th, 2024, so-and-so commented, blah, blah, blah. No, but, you let it appeal to the next 10 years or the past 10 years. And then when that next generation does come around and we get Inside Out 10 in 2050, you could go, wow, I remember when they launched Instagram and it had the brown icon and you got 3 likes and you were a superstar. Or I remember, something like that, compared to having to feel like it has to be trendy. I think sticking with the trends of today. And this kind of relates to my point of it being a time capsule, in the same way that fashion works, where fashion is kind of a cycle, right? We went from skinny jeans to big jeans to skinny jeans, and now we're back to big jeans, which I finally found big jeans I can wear. They're all children's size. It's amazing.
Oh man,
my legs are so short I can't do it. It's embarrassing, but I think we're in the big jeans little shirt era, where this is going to apply to the big jeans little shirt folks when their kids are wearing big shirts, skinny jeans.
That's right.
If that makes sense to everyone. Yeah. And I think that keeping the thumb on the pulse of what today is like and using that as an example for the future, as a tool storytelling, life imitates art and vice versa. We'll see these same issues still pop up down the line, whether they decide to produce Inside Out 3, which I'm not seeing any reports of yet. But if they do, something, just wait till they should have done it now with the presidential election and let Riley work a campaign, in the next 4 years or whatever. That should be the show. We should have her work a political campaign in the next 4 years.
Or
there's a lot of anger she's got to control.
Yeah.
What's the Michael Apted documentary series? 7 Up, 14 Up, 21 Up.
That's so I mentioned earlier about this could be the 7 Up, the animated 7 Up movies.
Or if this is the before trilogy of Linklater, we come every 9 years and we see where where love is at, and that'd be amazing if they did something like that.
Well, hey, we've got Ethan Hawke's daughter in the film.
Yeah.
So
Here we go.
Which I just picked up his book. What is it? Rules of a Night. Someone gave it to me as a 2-year belated graduation gift. I saw him for the first time in 2 years, and I've carried around this book with me every day in hopes of seeing you so I can give it to you. Shout out to the Hawks. Maya Hawke is fantastic in this. I think she's I look forward to her in Stranger Things next season, whatever that may happen. I think she and Ayo Edebiri. Edebiri is on such a spike up in her career right now, between The Bear and this airing in the month, like weeks apart. I do hope they return, whether it be for the limited series or movie or video game or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talent here for sure. And I just hope that whatever next iteration of Inside Out is, that they retain, because we haven't talked about Amy Poehler. She's Joy. She's like the marquee name of the movie. And I think people kind of give guff to like celebrity voice actors and everything. I think she owns this character. And I wasn't, unlike the Tony Hale thing at the end, I wasn't self-consciously thinking about Amy Poehler until the end credits. I'm like, oh, that's right, that really is her, because I was just thinking of her as Joy.
Yeah. Same with Phyllis Smith. She owns it too.
Yes.
And that, Amy Poehler has always been Leslie Knope to me. But I Parks and Rec is one of my favorite comedies of all time. I love Parks and Rec. Growing up in the Midwest and kind of seeing our own Parks and Rec play out, and just how genuinely and effortlessly funny it is. I sit there and I hear Leslie Knope. And it's totally. You have to separate the art from different parts and all that, but we're thinking of Leslie Knope in Parks. She was also this very sunshiny, outgoing, optimistic, joyous person for the most part. And I really do think Poehler was an excellent choice for the role. And she has just a very comforting sound. Her natural speaking voice is very comforting and very joyous.
Yeah,
Agreed.
it's perfect. It's almost stunt casting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so we're gonna leave it with our last comment, but this is not going to become a tangent. I promise.
Oh,
I
Take it,
know
Amy.
to
promise.
answer your question. You're out of money, so I guess I'm not gonna be starting my Warhammer career because it's so expensive. Yeah, no, give me the next 6 months. Let's check back when we do a show around New Year's 2025. Sit on this question, and we will circle back. And if I am not into it by then I don't know, come up with something.
okay.
There you go. But I mean, by that time, they'll be in pre-production on the movie, I'm sure.
They better do something good with it.
Right.
I'm gonna be so mad.
All right. Okay. We do have one last comment from Brian Martinez. The scene in the projection room when the screen is crashed like that old Apple commercial from the 80s is brilliant. It's a clever nod to older generations without being super obvious. Great show. Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, leave it to Pixar to it's the perfect, I guess, pop culture blender. And Annie, what you were talking about, with Home Alone and Ferris Bueller, I mean, those weren't, I mean, they are perfect time capsules of an era, but when I talk like hot button issues, it's hard. I'd have to think about it a lot more, because what I was thinking of was more analogous of like treating Facebook, like calling out by name would be almost like calling out the Iran-Contra trial during Ferris Bueller's Day Off for no reason. Like, that movie works. It's dated, but only because it came out, and it came out 40 years ago.
Right.
But there are themes and story ideas that are kind of timeless in it. And there's another movie that I heard they were making. I haven't heard any rumblings in a while. Thank goodness. Hopefully it's been scrapped.
Too?
No, it's the spin-off movie of the two car attendants that steal the car and go on a joyride.
Oh
while
my
Ferris is
God.
on his day off. There was talk about giving them a spin-off movie.
Oh boy, that's a little.
Now?
It's scraping the bottom of the.
Yes, now.
barrel.
Oy vey.
Yeah, pass.
Well, I mean, if you guys want to watch something, watch the documentary Brats.
Oh,
that
there you go.
talks about the Brat Pack and stuff. I just watched it today, and how how all of these Andrew McCarthy, interviews Emilio Estevez and Demi Moore, and what the whole stigma of being in the Brat Pack meant to them. But also, it has all these like pop culture professionals and authors and Bret Easton Ellis, and how, even looking at those films today, like the relatability and stuff like that. And it's very interesting because, I mean, these movies came out 40 years ago, and yet a lot of kids, when they watch them today, even though, I mean, there's no cell phones, there's no this, you're stuck in a room and stuff. Pretty in Pink, the whole ostracizing and all that. I always had a problem with Pretty in Pink because they made her be so poor, yet she had a car. And I was like, well, I didn't have a car, damn it. So I don't know. It's a very interesting documentary to see those films. Ferris Bueller's, Tex. I mean, there's a lot of them in that time where it's like you have this zeitgeist of like movies of like young adults that really hasn't been like that. I mean, maybe kind of comparatively, I think maybe in the late 90s, but nothing as much as like a good, like, I feel like 3 years in the 80s where it was like really like teens and early 20s having like a huge impact on film at that time. And, what it's meant even to people now when they watch it. It's a very interesting documentary. It's on Hulu and it's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for it a couple weeks ago, and it hadn't come out yet, I don't think. So yeah, thanks for reminding me. I gotta check that out, and maybe even talk about it with some folks. But next week, we're not gonna be talking about a new movie. We're gonna be talking about an old movie, Joe Dante's Matinee from 1993. So it kind of ties back in with the we were talking about a few weeks ago with the future of movies and gimmicks and getting butts in seats and keeping them entertained while they're in a Cineplex. I have a feeling that we'll have a lot to discuss about Matinee. So that'll be 8 p.m. Central next Wednesday night. I hope you can all join us. And thanks for hanging out, everybody. One last reminder, I'm closing the show soon, but I do appreciate the donations from Petty. Very much appreciated. All the donations from tonight's live stream are going to be matched, and the super chats from tonight's live stream are going to be matched and donated to the Parkinson's Foundation in loving memory of the life and spirit of Barbara York. Jeff York, our regular panelist, his mom passed away last week, so we are honoring her in that way. So thank you all for your generosity. Thank you for your comments. It's been great hanging out and talking about a pretty terrific movie. You know, it's we've had a lot of negativity here on the show in the last month or so, and I think, I'm going to say it, summer is saved. No matter what comes after this, we have Inside Out to look back on fondly. So yes, we are Earth's Mightiest Critics. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Mike Crowley, if you'll probably agree, Annie Banks of We Got This Covered and the Mary Sue. We've got Katie Glidewell, the bald in front, aka the blonde in front, and Don Shanahan of Too Many Things to Mention. Hey, that should be the name of your new enterprise. Too Many Things to Mention.
Gosh. LLC. Got it. Talk to the lawyers. You betcha.
There you go. Links to all of their stuff is down below, including as well as Jeff's information, the Parkinson's information. That sounds really weird. Barbara York's memoriam written by Jeff. And it's all good stuff. Oh, wait, one last bit from Petty. Jeff, you'll see this later, I'm sure. We all love Jeff very much. Yes, we do. And I love you all very much. So thanks, everybody. If you like this live stream, please like, subscribe, all that business. Follow all of Earth's Mightiest Critics. Watch Inside Out 2. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thanks very much. Take care and have a great, great evening.